Welcome to Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with. What we hear and listen to throughout our day can shape how we feel. If we feed and nourish our soul with wholesome conversations from everyday people, filled with positive stories, we may feel less alone and even inspired. We're all working through our own stuff, and sometimes you need to hear that you are doing amazing, which you are. Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with is listening to others talk about how they have journeyed life so far, how they keep their well-being in check, and how they keep their mindset positive. This is not always possible, but sometimes they share some really good tips on how they improve their well-being just for those days when they're not feeling quite the ticket. Welcome to this Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with community. I really just wanted to build something special that people can feel part of, feel seen, and feel valued. Some of the people we speak to have really inspirational stories, and hopefully it can resonate with you, make you stop, reflect, and also just pick up some top tips along the way. So thank you again for being here, and thanks for sharing your time with us. Here's the show. Hi everyone, just jumping in to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this series of Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with, and that's the amazing IA Hair and Beauty. Now, I don't know about you, but as someone who has a very busy life with lots going on, an hour hair or beauty appointment can feel like a real treat, an absolute essential, non-negotiable bit of self-care. Sometimes I know that all I need is a fresh French manicure to make me feel a bit brighter. I don't think we should underestimate these little acts of kindness and the impact that they have in our busy lives. So we have a special treat for you, a 15% one-time code across all the IA Hair and Beauty range. So if that's a gel polish or beautiful nail art, and you just need to jump over to Instagram to see the amazing nail art that Isabel does, or a fresh new trim or colour, then IA Hair and Beauty is the best. Go to IA Hair and Beauty on Instagram or Facebook and DM Isabel quoting the podcast for your 15% off treat. Enjoy! Hi everyone, welcome back to Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with. You'll notice we're on location today, so avid watchers of the show, that's, all 3 or 4 of you out there. We're in the playroom, how exciting. There's a karaoke machine there, might crack that out later, see how we get on. But today we have a really, really special guest with us, and we're going to get into talking about some really exciting things and some really important subjects as well. So we welcome Rob Rhodes. Hi, Rob.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thanks for joining us. It's amazing to have you. So for anybody out there who doesn't know who you are, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so as we've said, my name is Robert Rhodes. I am an actor. I'm 28 years old. I also do a lot of work with charities like Changing Faces and Face Equality International, working with them to basically try to get better representation across forms of media, and also help people with visible differences and break the stigma around it a little bit.
Yeah, amazing. And it's amazing work that you do, and I can't wait to get into that with you. But I always start with, what does well-being mean to you? That massive question.
So to me, I think well-being is essentially having a balance between professional and personal, being able to really look after myself and take note of the things that maybe are bringing me down and work in a positive way to be able to bring myself back up. And also well-being is being able to go out as a person with a visible difference and make myself feel beautiful, make myself feel sexy, and make myself feel well, and not focus on any past trauma that I may have had, but focus on the present moment. It's all about the present moment, I think, because that's, as a person that does have quite bad anxiety, that for me is something that's really important. Don't live in the past, don't worry about the future, just focus on what's happening right now and work hard to just plod on, essentially.
Yeah, I love that. So one of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about, and why I really wanted to bring you onto the podcast, is because I think what you're doing in terms of all your charity work with face equality is so, so important. And I was just saying to you before that the tweet that really made me stop in my tracks was when you mentioned about villains having facial disfigurement, scars, and that just being kind of synonymous with scary and villain, and how much as a kind of everyday person, I just didn't really clock that,
Yeah.
notice that, and see how that would be from the perspective of somebody who did have facial differences. So I just wonder if you want to talk about the work that you're doing, and then we'll get into wherever it goes. But yeah, I'd love to hear about that from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So last November, well, it's still ongoing, really. I was part of a campaign for changing faces, which was called I Am Not Your Villain. And the idea behind that basically was that throughout life, young people, adults, were exposed to visible difference as being a mark of evil, of being a mark of villainy. And even like, so as a child, one of the first things you're exposed to is the character of Scar in The Lion King. Now, Scar isn't a very nice person. So already that is detrimenting me as a child and putting ideas into my head that I could grow up that way. And unfortunately, when I was at school, I did have a couple of situations where, for example, so there was a picture of the Chucky doll that was passed around school and someone had written my name underneath it. And obviously, if you watch Child's Play like I do, because I'm a massive horror fan, he is, again, not a very nice character. He's actually a psycho murderer. And it's a doll. And it's like, why are they putting scarring on a doll? Like, why is that necessary? Because there's no way he was born with it. That's a choice that they've made. And it's even happening now. Like, for example, when the campaign came out, it was at the same time as the new James Bond film. So in that film, you've got not just one, Rami Malek, you have two other characters that are all villains, and they all have a visible difference. So the campaign, it isn't necessarily about completely obliterating the idea of a villain having a scar, because a lot of villains may have been in fights and stuff like that, etc. But it's more about the idea of equaling out that balance. Like, why can't we have a Marvel superhero that has got a scar? They get in as many fights and crashes, etc., as the villains do. So why do they all come up looking unscathed? And I think it's really important we start asking these questions because, as I say, children are so impressionable. Like, I was at the cinema and I went to see Black Widow, and there's a part in that where one of the characters takes a mask off and she has a huge burn scar on her face. Now, the little girl sitting next to me jumped into her dad's lap screaming, and it was the way the reveal was done. It was just quite tasteless. And essentially, that girl is going to go out, and if she sees somebody just going about their day with a burn scar, they're going to relate that to villainy and how awful that character was. And it's just not fair, because I know through doing the work I'm doing, I know so many wonderful people that have got scars and essentially are the true heroes, and they're just being completely misrepresented.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so crazy when you say it like that. It's like, how have we how is this still happening?
Yeah.
That the character of Scar, like you say, the first thing that we are exposed to as children, and that's the villain, the someone who's not nice. And thanks for sharing some of those things from your childhood as well. That's not easy to go back into. How do you how did you work through that? If you're at school and there's a lot of unkindness there, especially with notes being passed around the Chucky doll and stuff. How have you built yourself to where you are now? What does that journey look like for you?
So when I was younger, I moved to school when I was around 7 years of age. I moved to Northampton because my dad got a new job, and with that obviously came a lot of like intrusive questions and stares and stuff that I'd already been through at the old school. So that was quite difficult. But then I've been so lucky, I've had such a supportive family around me, and my mum and my dad and my sister have always had my back, and my mum's always been there to talk to about anything, as has my dad. And that's kind of how I got through all of that. And I think as well, there's, aside from the marks on my face, there is, I've always had a really big personality. So I just kind of don't care. I kind of go in all guns blazing, hi, and just would talk to everyone. Like, I think when I was little, I was potentially, until people pointed it out, I wasn't aware that I was different. And then going to secondary school, I made a really solid group of friends, and they always supported me through everything. And essentially it was when I found acting as well, that really helped me, because it was a way to really express myself and express some of these emotions that I've perhaps been suppressing, because I didn't want to feel like I wasn't normal and things like that. So I could really express that on stage. And also it was a chance for people to look at me and go, wow, he's talented, or wow, look at that character he's playing, and not just look at me for face value, scars on my face kind of situation.
And how do you think the industry is changing or not changing, or what do you think it needs to go? So what you know, what direction is it going in, of your experience so far of going out into auditions and things? What is your experience with that?
So it's getting a lot better. I've had some really bad experiences in the past. Like I won't say any names, but I had somebody that once told me that I would never get a job in a commercial or TV and film because people didn't want to look at someone like me, essentially. And I always laugh, like, what do you mean I won't get a job in a commercial? If it's for Eon Energy, do I not switch the lights on like everyone else? It's just stupid, isn't it? Like, but then as a young actor, you're so impressionable and you believe these things and you go, oh no, have I picked the wrong career? But and I've also had experiences so I went up for a role that was called Badly Burned Boy once, which I just found very strange, because not very tactful way of putting it. And also I don't have a burn scar, so that's a lack of education in that sense there. And I've been up for auditions where I've just been put in a room with lots of wonderful people that maybe had different disabilities, different differences from all across the spectrum, neurodiverse people in the same room, because they just wanted someone that was a bit different. And you kind of go into that room and you just feel like, oh, they've kind of found all of the oddbods and put them in a room together, which makes you feel absolutely lovely. Yeah. But it is changing for the better. And I think, for example, there's a lovely lady that I work with called lovely young lady Beth Bradfield, and she is featured on Mallory Towers on the BBC. Now, her visible difference is never mentioned. She is just a character that goes to Mallory Towers, and I think that's brilliant. And that's the way we need to head, because if you see me in my day-to-day life, I'm just a person walking down the street. You don't get my backstory, you don't get this history, you just accept me for the fact that I'm there. In the same way that I work in a shop, when I work in the shop, I'm just the shop assistant. I'm not the shop assistant with the scar that's been through the horrible life and everything like that. And I think it is getting better. And also I just need to shout out to my wonderful agent Burston Talent, who are just constantly putting me up for all kinds of roles. Like, they've never put me in a box, and they put me up for princes. They put me up in the same way, like they'll put me up for villains, because I don't mind playing a villain. It's really fun.
You're
in
an
the
actor.
same way, yeah, exactly. In the same way, I'll be seen for heroes and stuff like that. And it really is special, and it is changing. But I think people just need to be more aware of it, and we need to talk about it more. And yeah, the conversations are happening, and we're starting the conversation. So I think we'll get there.
Yeah. Good. And it's so lovely to hear you say, I think we'll get there. Like, your positivity is just amazing about it. But that story that you told about all the, as you affectionately called it, oddbods in one room, it's such a weird thing to hear, that, in this day and age, that potentially they're just wanting to tick a box of we got somebody with a disability, whatever realm that is, to then not even think, what is it that we want? And actually, my children who watch children's television, I'm seeing quite a few more, wheelchair users, some people with there's an actor that they love in one of their shows, I think it's The Dumping Ground, who I think has cerebral palsy. And for them to see that at a young age is really important. And again, those actors are not there because of that. They are actors, and that's it. They're in that role, and they're in a show, and that's really important. Like you say, you want to go up for every single role because you're an actor, and that's what you do. One of the things I was going to ask you as well was, in terms of education for people, and especially parents like myself, and anybody listening to this who maybe has, especially children. I think as children, I mean, I'm sure adults stare too, but children do, because they don't know any different, but they don't know any different because they don't see it, which is why you say representation is so important. What are the best things that we as educators can do, and that people who are listening can do to support, be allies, and also help educate specifically children maybe who don't know? You don't often want to go, we don't stare, because that makes that person then invisible. That's how I feel. So I always try to, if we're ever in a situation where we can talk to them, we do. And sometimes they're really lovely. And sometimes you maybe say something that's, well, that there's just a person and they have such and such going on, no different to anyone else. What's your view on how we can get through
So
that?
I think what you just said there is perfect. That thing of being like, pointing out the fact of being like, it's rude to stare, because it is rude to stare. And I feel like in the generation we're in, so many people have forgotten that fact, and pointing out that it's rude to stare and then saying they're just a normal person like you. Maybe they just look a little bit different. And as I say, for me personally, I'm a very open person. So I'd be more than welcome for a child to come over to me and ask, what's that on your face, or what happened to you? And I will tell them my story. But that being said, not everybody with a visible difference has that confidence. And no one should ever be expected to just be able to talk about their experiences, because everyone's difference is on a different scale and comes from a different story, some of which can be quite traumatic for people. But I think as parents as well, it's really important to surround your children with difference. Don't just let them watch the Hollywood movies that kind of were out when we grew up. Watch interesting documentaries, like teach them about the Katie Piper Foundation, for example. And she's an absolute inspiration of mine. And
mine too.
Wonderful guy, Adam Pearson, as well, who is also such an inspiration.
Love Adam Pearson.
He's hilarious.
I love him.
And it's that thing of surround yourself with difference, follow people on social media, and maybe have the conversation with your children at home, so that then they're not going to be surprised that people in the real world, away from this Hollywood ideal, do actually look different.
Yeah. And I wonder whether this, because of the generation of parent that maybe I'm at, I do wonder whether it is getting better, because I feel as if there is so much more diversity on television than there's ever been before. Particularly, I just remember when we watched the Strictly series, one of the I think podcast hosts of Strictly News in between the Saturday shows is a drag queen. I can't remember who she is. My kids were just absolutely obsessed. They were like, who's that? I was like, we need to dive into the drag world here. And we ended up going down such a hole on YouTube, watching little bits that they could see. And then we ended up watching makeup tutorials and all this kind of stuff. And now that feels like a world to them that is just another world of like entertainment,
like accessible for them
and accessible for them to see and understand. And I think that's so important, is that conversation. But like you say, you can't have that conversation unless we see it more. Which is go on.
And that is the thing. It's that as you say, like, it's becoming so much more diverse, and there's wonderful trans actors, Black actors in roles that were originally white, which is just not a thing anyway, because I just think that's a ridiculous ideal. And it really is starting to open up, and I think soon we will get there. And I know that potentially starting out, it's going to be difficult, because you get the people online. There will people be like, why is this person there that looks like that, because they shouldn't be in this, and it has to start somewhere, as you say. And it really is getting there. And I think for me, it's the thing of having a visible difference. We're not actually recognized as a minority group at the moment. So we come under the huge umbrella of being disabled, and the nearest thing that people say about what happens to us is ableism. And there's not essentially a word for the hate that we receive and stuff like that. And the recognition of that, I think, would be really helpful, because that's, as we saw through the pandemic, the wonderful Black Lives Matter movement that happened, and how many people came together to get behind that. We as people can create a movement, and that, with the right support, that can happen in this situation as well, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely something that we should help and keep fighting for sure. And I'll pop on all the charities that you support as well. I'll pop on the description so people can go and have a look and support. Like you say, having that tag on just the end of the email, just for people to go, oh, what's this? And just to click onto it. It's really, really important. I'm going to put it on my website as well. One of the things I was going to ask you as well, in terms of, just because I like to make it quite performer focused, because we have so many creatives that listen to this and watch this. You mentioned there that you did suffer a little bit with anxiety. So, and also, you know, if you're going about your daily business and 10 times in the day, you've got people, you know, staring at you, or all of the other things that you really have to deal with more than anyone else of a day. How do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? How do you, you know, have any strategies that help you through that? Have you got anything that you could share with people if they're feeling similar?
Yeah, so I think it really is about trying to find that balance between being professional and personal. And then that's why I kind of, with everything that I do, I try to just have fun and be myself, because I think if you're switching yourself off and turning into this, okay, now I have to go and talk about visible difference person, then it can be really anxiety inducing, because it's a really big thing to talk about. And I just tell myself, stop. All you can talk about is your own experiences, and try to teach other people. And with the staring and stuff, it really can get quite exhausting. But I've just learned, if I don't want to talk about it, sometimes it's easier to remove myself from that situation. And I know it shouldn't be like that, but rather than sit there and have that, honestly, it's that feeling of like, they're looking at me like, and then just remove yourself. And I think sometimes it is about, obviously education is important, but above education becomes self-preservation for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like the joy outside of acting, what brings you the most joy? So what do you like love doing every day?
So every day, I must admit, I love my job at the dog groomers. I work at a lovely dog and
Dog
groom.
groomers! Oh my goodness, we need to
Yeah.
get into this.
Yeah, so I'm a shop assistant there, and I do a couple of washes and dries and stuff. But I really love my job, and I love animals, and I love the little dogs, and that brings me a lot of joy. So it's nice to be able to go there and focus on that. I'm also a very social person, so you'll often see me having dinner with a glass of wine, and yeah, as I say, I'm a huge fan of horror films, which
Yeah,
is really strange, I know, because I probably don't come across like that, but I love horror.
yeah.
It's honestly not my favorite genre, and it's such an escape. And I think it is that brutal thing of like, oh, well, it could be worse. At least I'm not getting chased with a chainsaw. So that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm a very, very active person. I'm constantly on the go, and I love that. And I love being really busy. And then coming home, and I listen to audiobooks when I get home to chill out, just because there's no screen. You can just get lost in a story and just nod off to it, essentially. I love it.
Yeah, I love that. And do you think it's really important? I kind of remember this when I was living in London, kind of acting full time in one of them. That was quotation marks, people listening. You have to find a job that you love in between, because when you get up every day and think, oh, I've got to do this job, you know, and there isn't an audition in sight, you know, that like you say, you have found a job that you absolutely love. Is that like essential for you as an actor?
Yeah, really, it is. Like, honestly, I've done a bit of everything. Like, I worked at Weatherspoons for a while, and I'll be honest, that was really, really difficult. And I really struggled there because there wasn't any opportunity to almost put on a bit of a show for people, which sounds really weird, but like at the dog groomers, like I love it. Like every customer that comes in, you're like, hello. And you can, my manager's great, just lets me be myself. I can dress in my like sassy clothes and have a real good laugh with people. And I think that's really important, because even now though, like I do have my down days. Like it can be really difficult, especially when you're sending off tape after tape and you're working full time and doing that, then sending off tapes in your own time, which obviously is something you unfortunately don't get paid for.
Yeah.
It can be really exhausting. And then on top of that, you've got the charity work that I'm doing as well. And yeah, it could be really exhausting, because obviously as an actor, you have to be really passionate about it to want to do it, because it's a long game. Like it's taken me like probably like I think 6 years to start getting somewhere with it. And in that sense, it's important to have something behind you that doesn't feel absolutely soul destroying.
Yes.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely hear you. I completely agree with you. I had a couple of jobs when I was living in London that just made me feel so happy, you know, to just be going to work every day. and I do have friends who have got jobs that they just don't love doing every day, and I think that's a really difficult thing. So finding something you love is great. Something that I always ask people is, what would your top 3 tips be for people who are feeling a little bit like they haven't got their life in balance as much as they want to? Like you say, it's exhausting, you self-tapes, it's working, it's just, life is just full on kind of 200 miles an hour. What would your top tips be to kind of help people to, like you say, find a bit more joy, a bit more kind of self-care in their life?
So I think number one would definitely be something that I'm still learning, because as I say, I'm always on the go, learning how to say no.
Yes.
You don't always have to be there to show up for someone. If they love and respect you, they will understand the fact that maybe you need to take a break and have some time for yourself. Whether that's you can't attend a friend's party, you can't have dinner that evening, or even if like, I'm really sorry, I can't do the overtime shift today because I need to go home and I need to just sit and I need to watch my drag queens or whatever it is you like to do in your spare time. That's obviously fine, but
Yeah, like, isn't it always?
absolutely, we love it. And then linked to that is probably going with your gut instinct. Follow your gut instinct of what is beneficial to you. Like you know what works for you and you know what doesn't. So if your gut is telling you, oh, I really shouldn't go out, or I should go home after this pint, I know that if I don't, I'm going to have a horrible day tomorrow and give myself anxiety. Follow that gut instinct. And again, it's really hard because we live in a world of peer pressure and stuff like that, but stick to your guts. And then something else I like to do when I'm feeling a little bit anxious or a bit low, I just like to stop and I look at what's around me and I try to breathe in something beautiful and breathe out some negative energy. And even if it's something really silly, like, oh, I've never noticed that flower before, you'll notice things in life that you hadn't noticed, and little things that can actually make you smile. And again, it's easier said than done when you're struggling with anxiety or depression, but even having that thought of, oh, I never noticed that crack in the pavement, can really help you to slow down, I think. And I think that's really important because especially living in London, or if you're living in a city, everything is so fast paced that you just don't stop. You don't stop to look and you don't stop to think. Sometimes I think when I'm on the tube, I'm like, oh, this is actually really amazing. I've just gone across London in 15 minutes. But how often do you actually stop and think that? Like, you don't. It just becomes this torturous task of getting on the tube with all of the people. And just focus on the small things sometimes, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's such a lovely way to kind of close everything. I think your point about kind of slowing down and taking things in and breathing it in is just one of my favorites. I do it all the time. No matter how many times I will walk somewhere, I will see something new, but only if I'm open to doing it as well. Like if I'm just got to get somewhere, but actually sometimes just get your head up, up, have a look, take a breath, because it can center you in the moment, can't it?
Yeah, and also just little self-care days. Like, for example, this month I've been so busy with like all the campaigning. I work at the moment, I do like 3 different jobs. So and that's on top of acting and campaigning. So I'm very busy at the moment. And so like next month, I've just got a day I've got one day in my diary and I put it in a different color to everything else so I can make sure I don't book everything. And I'm going to go to Surrey Docks Farm and I'm going to see the goat and the pigs. And it's just like, and just act like a child and do something cute. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just not something you do or think about. And it is sad, isn't it, as an adult, that you have to plan that time, but it's important to plan that time because looking after yourself is just as important as showing up for other people, as I say. So
absolutely, we can never pour from an empty cup. So for us, we have to fill up and stop and do that. And I heard someone talking about this the other day. They kind of like numbered their days, and a one day, so this sounds like that's what you're having, a one day is there's nothing in the diary. It is just all about you. And actually it's not selfish, it's perfect. It's exactly what you need. You should be doing that. You are in charge of yourself. You have to care for yourself. No one else is going to do
exactly.
it.
The thing is, when that day comes around, you never know that thing. The thing for yourself might even be, actually, I want to go and see that person because they make me feel really good. And then you do end up doing something with someone else, but it's still about self-care because it's what you want to do. And you just need to sit down and stop for a minute and be like, what do I need to do today? I don't need to do anything. What do I want to do? And I think that's really important.
Needs and wants, really important. Well, we appreciate how busy you are, and I love watching everything that you do. And I just wish you all the success with everything, especially your acting career, because I just think you're amazing. And I'm absolutely sure that your lead role in your dream horror movie is around the corner.
Yeah.
Is that the dream? Is that the dream? The big.
Honestly, I would love to do a horror film. Like, and
Can you imagine?
Honestly, I would absolutely love it. Like, and as I say, villain or victim, whatever I am, I just would love to be there and cover myself in blood and run around like Carrie.
Well, you heard it here first. So if it happens, this is the exclusive right here. And also, you know, amazing work that you're doing about face equality. I'll absolutely follow it. And you know, anything that you want to put on here, you're welcome to do so. But I'll make sure I update the links as well in this episode. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Manny, and thank you all for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Wellbeing with Manny in Conversation With, and thank you for being part of our community. It really is all for you. It's all purpose driven, and I really hope that you've got something from the episode today. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to share it with anyone who you feel would benefit from hearing these open and real conversations. Please make sure that you are following and you are subscribed to make sure you never miss an episode, either on your app of choice or on YouTube. And if you can, please rate and review the channel. That would be so helpful, because it helps other people find us. And finally, just remember that it is all about talking. It is all about sharing. So think, reach out. Who will you have a conversation with? Have a fabulous week. See you next week.